been with the top people of this administration. I don't know what else can be shown to you. But this is a fact, it's here. Of course, the excuse that Mr. Napoli gave was, gee, he didn't, even though they had the rest of it. Now, when you have an assistant city manager, the right hand to the manager who started this in me, and he is having this back and forth with someone like Javier Ortiz, if that isn't clear state light, where someone that's blind could see it, of how this man is receiving protection to the point that this is the relationship that he is having with the top people of this administration. I don't know what else can be shown to you. But this is a fact, it's here. Of course, the excuse that Mr. Napoli gave was, gee, he didn't know that by him answering Ortiz, that would be seen publicly. So what does it matter? Whether it was public or private, what matters is what he was sending out and how much credence they were putting to Ortiz. And then Ortiz, in combination with the manager and others, came here with a small group of present officers and former officers to try to attack me, even after they saw that I had an honorable discharge, to try to see how they could muddy me up, and the manager smiling with others, and Ortiz coming back and forth to the manager, and then speaking closely together or going behind those doors, speaking to each other to see what moves he had to make again. And nobody bothered to say a word to Mr. Ortiz until now. So I wanted to put this on the record, clearly put it on the record, because these are part of the reasons that I took in presenting a motion, besides others, of firing the city manager. And if he hadn't done any of them that was wrong, nobody would have been trying to have stopped the investigation of our Auditor General, and I guarantee you, he certainly would not have resigned.
Commissioner, just briefly, because I'm compelled to tell you that if you want to make a complaint on this other than this presentation, you have the ability to. There would not be a 180-day rule here because a complaint has not been generated. And so I don't believe I've ever seen that, but certainly you have a right,
Chief,
if you want to make a complaint, and that can be investigated and it can be deemed the level of appropriateness, et cetera. It's just my duty to let you know that if you wanted to make a complaint, you certainly can, like anyone else. That's all I'm telling you here.
Chief, look, I would be surprised if you hadn't seen any of these and dozens of others.
You'd be surprised what little attention I pay to that nonsense.
Well, I would be surprised, Chief, with everything else. And why in the world would I trust internal affairs that's controlled by you when, one, I've seen what the 40-plus victims of Javier Ortiz have gone through and what has happened in internal affairs, including many of the ones that were shown here last Friday. Furthermore, when I have read information from complaints and allegations that were filed with the Civilian Investigative Panel, that in 2018, while Captain Ortiz was being investigated by Internal Affairs, you were chief then, it wasn't another one, like your assistant said, and you had an Internal Affairs commander there at the time that's different than the one now. Civilian Investigative Panel received a complaint that you and the Internal Affairs commander were going to let the 180-day pass by so that Mr. Ortiz won't have any problems. And in fact, they opened an investigation based on that. And as I am told, when they came to inquire of you, you refused to speak to them.
That's not, I don't have a problem speaking with anybody.
This is what I've read, Chief.
No, I understand. I'm just to clarify the record, I don't, again, the 40 or 50 or 60 complaints that he's received over the course of his time here, I can't answer to that. I believe he's had 6 complaints in the last 2 years. Not that one complaint is acceptable, but I believe he's had 6 complaints. I still don't believe it was a 180 issue. There was an investigation that was administrative where the investigator did botch his case. That investigator, sir, was disciplined by me and removed from internal affairs. I don't know what other action I could have taken other than that. He's been substantiated twice. In those 6 complaints, it's my belief that he's been substantiated twice. As I said before, I'm not interested in protecting anybody.
The bottom line is that what was alleged to CIP is in fact what ended up happening.
That is not what happened, sir.
Well, I'm saying
You're saying that's what you understood.
They alleged that 180 days was going to go by, and in fact, that's what happened. 180 days went by, and Ortiz was off the hook because of that.
And just for clarification as well, the 180 days matter if there was going to be a substantiation of a case, to be clear. So if someone makes a complaint and there is no evidence, for example, forget Javi Ortiz, someone makes a complaint tomorrow and it's not a case that's going to be substantiated, then there is no urgency in closing that case in the 180 days, because that only matters if discipline is going to be issued. You can still have a findings after that time period, but the only reason that would matter, the 180 days, if discipline is going to be issued. If there's a complaint that we can clearly see is going to be inconclusive, for example, that case isn't necessarily priority. One that discipline will be issued will be the priority, because if the 180-day passes, you cannot issue discipline.
What happened in this case was that it was claimed that Mr. Ortiz could not be reached because he was out of town, he could not be reached, whatever, in numerous weeks. Therefore, case was closed. And then on the investigator from Internal Affairs that you claim was disciplined because he botched the investigation, from what I read, it might have been retaliation because he was the one that it's alleged that gave information out as to what was going on.
I don't know what you're referring to, but the case that I'm referring to, the investigator gave him his notice of discipline before he took his statement, which was a violation of the Officer Bill of Rights because he was going to be disciplined on the case. That alone allowed him to not be disciplined, and that's why that investigator was transferred from the unit.
Nevertheless, Chief, I could go on into many other areas.